to our Investonomics webinar on the Union Budget 2023 with Mr. Ramesh Mantri, the CIO of White Oak Capital. Mr. Ramesh Mantri has 19 years of experience in investing and financial analysis across sectors. He founded the Ashoka Capital Advisors that advised a fund and family offices on equity investments in South Asia. Prior to this, he was an analyst at CRISIL and covered the financial sector. He was also a part of the two-member team which invested in South Asia in equity and debt, Alden Global Capital, a US-based hedge fund for over 7 years. Mr. Mantri is a CFA charter holder, MBA from the Faculty of Management Study, Delhi, and a chartered accountant. Good afternoon and welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity on this show.
So we'll start with a very basic question. What's your first take on the budget? Everybody seemed to, there were a lot of positive reviews. What was your take on it?
Yes, so usually when you go into a budget, in the last budget before the elections, right, and the expectations are low, and you typically you expect subsidy spending to go up a lot, right, and capital investment to be cut back. The priorities the government changed, but this was a very positive surprise that despite all the pressures, the government chose to deliver a sustainable pro-growth budget. It's not only growth oriented, but it's also sustainable growth. They're talking about, rather than sustaining growth through subsidy link spending, which is often the benefits are transitionary to the economy. The government has chosen to make accelerated significant investments into infrastructure, which will significantly alter the productivity of the system. So that way it's a sustainable growth model.
Okay, so do you think this will bring in a lot of FII interest now going forward this year?
Well, it's difficult to say what happens in the short term with FIs because they take a very global context of investment opportunities, including where other markets are trading at, their own flows, and also what happens on geopolitics and what's happening to interest rate policies. So it is difficult to say what FIs would do, let's say, the next few months. But if India continues to deliver strong, sustainable growth, and which is what the intention is in the budget, right, then it's very difficult for over longer periods for investors to avoid the Indian market. So what really matters in businesses is if you deliver a great model, a sustainable model, eventually investors come back. It's difficult to say what the timing will be.
Okay. So do you think this budget has been able to take care of the supply side crunch we've been facing in the last, since the pandemic has hit?
So see, the thing is, the supply side disruptions that have occurred because of COVID, because of the shipping related bottlenecks, and also the disruption because certain areas go into COVID zones and supplies are not available. Those issues in the short term can't be addressed by the budget because those require long-term fixes, right? And a number of initiatives in the budget, first significantly investing in infrastructure to one, sort some of the infrastructure bottlenecks, but also make India a more attractive place for manufacturing and for doing business. That over a medium to long term will start finding solutions to these problems. For example, there is a lot of interest in India manufacturing because of what's happened to China and diversification away from what's called the China plus one model. Now, to address that model, unlike services where all you need is an office and a laptop and people can start working, manufacturing requires first you need to build factories, you need to get power connections, you need to get inbound within the country, domestic logistics, and then get the international logistics in place. So these require long, and of course, the government get involved in every step. So you need to also improve the ease of doing business for manufacturing. On those elements, number of right steps are being taken, whether it is about, first creating the infrastructure, significant infrastructure, particularly the huge focus on logistics, investment, accelerated significant investment in both railways and roads. Number two, huge focus on, improving the ease of doing business where you cut down the number of compliances, you decriminalize what the number of legal compliance requirements. So there is a very focused effort on these parts to create long-term sustainable competitiveness of the Indian economy.
Yes, sir. So, and as I think our Prime Minister very it has laid the foundation towards us becoming a developed economy. Would you agree?
Yeah, so this is a beginning. We are still a very long way from, but the path, we are on the right path. And India, in fact, we are always, always short of infrastructure. When we create capacity, demand is always much more than capacity. So I think we have a long way of continuous investment in both physical infrastructure and also investing in the human capital, which also has been articulated in the budget through, training programs, nursing colleges. So a number of other steps have been, and also supporting entrepreneurship through startups, and also, making GIFT City as a viable, what do you call it, destination for business funds and financial services to start from. So a number of steps are being taken on that. But we are still a long way to get a developed economy status.
Okay, so aside from actually the ease of business and a slew of measures for infrastructure, the finance minister also announced a lot of digital first policies, and be it whether it is on the education center set up for AI robotics for skilling, and whether it is about wanting to become data embassies to the world. Where do you see the IT sector in the long term?
Yes, so one on the government side, one uses using technology for skilling, which is basically setting up libraries, supporting AI, investments, setting up number of 5G labs to build technology for India usage. So that is globally, often R&D investments globally, even in US economy, there's a significant government support that comes to make initial R&D investment. So it's good to see that the government is stepping up on R&D. So it's a positive. The other initiative the government also talked about, which I think is important, is to create a single, for financial services particularly, to create a single KYC for everyone, integrated KYC, which again improves the ease of doing business, where your DigiLocker will become your way of providing all the key identity information for every person. So again, that's again a good, I think, improving the ease of doing business. And number three, of course, setting up these what you call setting up what they call as data embassies. This is basically setting up a lot of data centers in India for global backup. So what happens is, typically when people store data, they have stored data in near-term locations, but they also, as part of risk management and business continuity, also have data centers which lie in different zones, whether it's different seismic zone, different environmental zone, different geographic zone. And the idea is to create India as one of the hubs for setting up data centers. That is the idea behind this policy. And India itself, with our localization of data norms, requires significant investment in data centers. So again, that's a positive.
So India's joblessness rate was actually at about 8.3% last month. Do you think this budget has done something to address that issue? I mean, of course, I understand a budget cannot really address that issue, but where do you see this in the near term? Because a lot of people are scared about this right now.
Yes, so first of all, it's not the government's job. Government should not become the employer, start creating jobs. They should create an environment which allows job creation to happen. So what you do is you facilitate the business, and on India's side, if you think about what are the enablers, when you think of GDP growth is a function of three things: labor participation, risk capital availability, and improving productivity. The three big drivers of GDP growth. Now, if you think of first first let me talk about why labor participation comes up. Before that, let's talk about first productivity. So the government has taken a number of steps to improve the ease of doing business. Whether it's reducing compliance requirements, decriminalizing, including the single KYC that we talked about, making PAN as a single KYC for businesses in India. So a number of steps are being taken on that account to improve the ease of doing business. And we have been on this journey for the last 30 years now in India since the reforms started, the liberalization started. Number two is about risk capital. Now, risk capital again is being facilitated one through the whole focus on supporting the startups. Number two, of course, the focus on making GIFT City as a hub for financial services and letting global financial services operate out of this city, making it as an international financial center. That is ambition. And number three, on labor, and before going back to productivity again, significant investment in infrastructure, which again improves the productivity of labor. So whether it is railway networks, road networks, airports, significant focus on that. And finally, on the labor side, investing in skilling, education, skilling, libraries, AI labs, 5G labs. So the government is facilitating, creating, making sure we're investing both in human capital, physical capital, and removing creating more enablers of growth. So on that dimension, the government is taking steps, but these things take time to play out. There's no miracle that gets delivered even in the next 6 months. The only part I can say here is that our Indian economy today is a relatively better place, considering we are seeing now, a lot of expectations of a global slowdown. And India, particularly, we are seeing very strong revival in, both infrastructure spending and real estate. And these are the two sectors that create a lot of low-end jobs, create a lot of jobs. And also the focus on tourism, which again creates a lot of jobs. So particularly the three sectors, one, real estate is doing well on its own, infra spending, they're stepping up. And again, tourism. And so these three sectors tend to create a lot of jobs with the way they were operated. So they're positive, but it will take time.
Okay, sir. So one last question I wanted to ask you was, there is push to the new tax regime that has happened. In light of this, what is your take on how the ULIP and the ELS business would do now for mutual funds?
Sure. So one, let's understand the new tax regime. The idea is, I happen to be, have studied my CA. So the idea of the new tax regime is significantly simplify the tax code in India, and make it much, simpler to operating, because of which under the new code, all the tax exemptions are gone away, right? Now people have to sell products on their investment merits, on risk and return, and not about what the tax benefits are, right?
Yeah.
And one of the sectors that's actually impacted a lot because of this change is insurance, because one of the big USPs for insurance was the tax incentives. So now a lot of financial products are coming on the same platform on the taxation side. They're coming to parity. So on mutual fund side, ELSs, will get impacted because now people can invest in any mutual fund scheme. So ELS schemes may get less money, but I would believe that the mutual fund industry, because is actually now at a parity with, let's say, insurance, more parity with insurance. And so is actually more better positioned to capture the investment savings, right? Insurance, you have a challenge on certain products which were benefiting from certain beneficial tax structures, and particularly with premiums over 5 lakh will get impacted. And in that context, mutual fund industry becomes more competitive versus insurance.
Okay. So aside from insurance, any other sector you see that would take a big hit from policy announcements that were made?
So the good part is that the budget was broad-based. There was no really bad news at a very high level in the budget on specific sectors, except what has happened to insurance. And by the way, the new tax code was anyway likely to come through because it was anyway already it was in the work, has already been implemented. It's optional now, becoming the default. The only big negative for insurance is that over 5 lakh premiums, we understand that is less than 10% in single digit of the industry premiums. So they will see an impact. But apart from that, I think, because the broad budget has been positive across the board, can't call out on top of my head any sector that's significantly adversely impacted.
Sorry, last question I want to ask you was on the telecom sector. There was a liquidity crunch that needed to be addressed, and that a lot of telecom operators were hoping for. Do you think that that somewhere there was a gap there?
So maybe what is going to happen on the, one of the operators is struggling on telecom side, and the operators have been asking for some benefit. Maybe the telecom policy is outside the budget, so maybe the government will take steps, or may not take steps depending on their stance. But maybe that will happen out of the budget. So in India, now budget is not longer the only defining instrument of economic policy, which it used to be. Now a lot of economic policy decisions happen outside the budget. The big tax cut in India, in 2019 happened outside the budget. So in that context, let's be clear that there are a lot of economic policies that happen outside the budget also.
All right. So thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the participants, and wish you, it's very late, but wish you a good New Year. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.